This is Paul. Yeah. I was just sitting here. I had sent some emails this afternoon. Yeah, 3,000 of them, but only got one response. Seemed like those in law enforcement think that they only enforce certain laws. It's as if, well, they can allow for crime to happen unless it's the actual laws that they enforce. Yeah. And it's a big problem because when you have a swearing in and you're an elected or appointed oath of office, there are a lot of code enforcement officers that actually have to swear to support the laws of their respective states and the United States Constitution. I know it sounds weird that those involved in the codes of building and property usage would actually have to swear that they would support and defend the Constitution of the United States, but I did some research on the whole code enforcement thing. I actually do know who I'm emailing. But instead of getting a response, I didn't get any emails. So my rights are still being violated. My sons are still missing. My right to my assets and my attorneys and my lawyers, those lawyers that have that oath of admission that they will support the Constitution of their respective states and they will support the United States Constitution, and they will always have ethical behavior. They would never involve themselves in anything illegal. They wouldn't intentionally have gotten paid to obstruct my rights as a father for the last 6 years. They didn't get paid to make any shows or have any forgeries. It seemed like there was some forgeries on this protection order, but for some reason I can't get the laws of the United States enforced. Starting to get a little upset about this. When you send thousands upon thousands of emails and you document that there's no signature of the petitioner, that I wasn't given actual notice and opportunity to be heard, that there's no identifying signature of the actual spouse that I had, pooch. I looked at all the forgeries when I was living in the fifth wheel and when I had received any correspondence from the court. And you would have thought over all these months that they themselves would have went through and looked through the signatures of every court document. I mean, there's nothing to say that the sheriff couldn't have called a forensic signature expert and say, well, could you go through these and see if Heidi Budnick actually signed these court documents for the last 6 years? But no, they just thought, well, we're not going to do anything. We're just not going to enforce the laws. You would have thought the police chief would have employed somebody that actually could give expert testimony in a lawsuit that there's actual forgeries and Heidi Lee Budner is not Heidi Lee Budnick. Poo-poo, poo-poo. I provided quite a few signatures over the last couple of years of emailing those that are in office. You would have thought the State Patrol would have sent out one of their signature experts and say, well, let us have a look at these court documents. We just want to make sure it's the actual signature of the actual wife that he had married. It would have been something if somebody had alleged domestic violence when they weren't actually my wife. For a body double to sign a signature, but we weren't really married. That'd be like an imposter saying that I committed domestic violence against a woman that is not actually the woman that had said that I committed domestic violence. You would have thought someone in law enforcement would have checked out the story. Now, I just wanted to send a quick reminder, okay, I'm going to make some videos, but when you don't enforce the law, even a code enforcement officer that has to make sure that every building is up to code has to enforce the laws of the United States when they know of any crime. Now, I would have thought the FBI, considering the thousands of emails, would have walked in and said, well, let's have a look at these signatures and see if they're real or not. Because for somebody that is not my wife to allege that I committed domestic violence and to violate my custody rights when it's not the actual person, there could be 20, 30 different women that said I committed domestic violence, but they weren't the woman that I had married. Now, what crime would be committed if I were to go into the courthouse, file for a protection order against a woman that's not my wife? You actually have to issue protection orders against the person that you're married to, or the actual respondent or petitioner. I mean, does it have to be the real person, or can you just say, well, that person committed domestic violence? I could go over to the Goodwill, look at any woman, ask her, what's your name? Well, my name's Mary Smith. Good to know you. My name's Paul Budnick. And walk over to the courthouse and say, well, Mary Smith, she beat the shit out of me. Uh-oh, another cuss word. How do you actually know who it was that had alleged that I'd committed domestic violence? Did anybody in the Clallam County Sheriff's Office think about who were the body doubles and the imposters that Homeland Security had employed to try to hide Heidi Budnick? Were there any criminals involved? I remember once I was sitting on a bench in Sequim, and some woman, it seemed like she had jumped on her. She said, I will slap a bitch. Like she was talking to my wife through me. And when I had that thought in my mind, I will slap a bitch, I turned around and I said, I will slap a bitch too. Okay. I would slap that bitch. As a man, I know it would have been domestic violence if Homeland Security had been employing in their top secret army of the Nazi body doubles that were actually wanted criminals that they had let out of prisons or jails with the agreement that, well, you're going to work for us now, okay? We're going to employ those that have actual no law enforcement experience. In fact, we pull them out of prisons, those lesbian sympathizers that happen to have been in prison that Jane let out of prison so that she could beat the shit out of Heidi. Again, another cuss word. In the event that Heidi did something the Homeland Security didn't want. Because when you jump on me and I think, I'm going to slap a bitch, okay? And then I'm thinking, what bitch am I going to slap? And then I realize, well, you're the bitch that just said that. No.